Welcome, one and all, to the ExtraVerts Podcast, the podcast that pulls back the shroud of mystery behind the entertainment industry. That's right. If you enjoy watching YouTubers do their stuff on YouTube, or up-and-coming actors and actresses showing up in your favorite movies and television shows, this is the podcast for you. I will be interviewing them once a week, and they get to sit here and talk to me interview style and just give their take on what it's like to be in the industry, the ups, the downs, the tips, the good things to know, the stories. This is stuff to educate you as the audience. For those out there who are trying to do something out there, you sit there and you read all these books and they tell you, oh, make a YouTube page and boom, success, or just take this one acting class and boom, you'll be a success. But there's a long road to success to getting a TV show out there, a YouTube page out there, to get into your first movie role. And these are the people who are walking that road. Now, they aren't the big success stories you see all the time on TV. These are the people who are up and coming, the ones who are still grinding away at their craft. And that's why you got to hear that, because they're the ones who this stuff is still fresh. When you talk to somebody who's been famous for 7+ years, it's very easy for them to forget all the grinding that they did to get to that point, because, you know, they got agents and they have their own managers and their marketing team. But when you're that one person, that one man band, that one lady band that needs to be the hype person, that needs to be the editor, that needs to be the person that takes you to everywhere. The way you eat is based off of this content that you're creating. These are the people that you need to hear from, because they're the ones who are going to give you the real inside scoop so that you can learn from their mistakes. You can learn from the stuff that they've done, and you can grow off of what they did. Now, before we get into this edition of the ExtraVerts Podcast, firstly, my name is Odeon, the host. I am a writer, an ex-YouTube personality, ex-blogger. I used to do a whole bunch of other stuff, and then this seemed to just make sense, and that's why I'm here today. Now, let's start off this podcast with a segment I like to call Fun Facts. Now, in this edition of Fun Facts, I love to give facts about actors, actresses, TV shows, movies, and alike. The reason why is I feel in giving you these little pieces of information, these little nuggets, it helps you to understand the goings-on of your favorite shows and just the world around you. So today's fun fact, the show we're going to be talking about is the show Will and Grace, a show that broke a lot of different cultural boundaries when it came out back in 1998. But on top of all that, it's also won semi-little known award that you could say, that it is one of the only shows where all the principal cast members won an Emmy Award. Now, the other two shows that have this honor is All in the Family, which is the first show to have that happen, and The Golden Girls. But there's also a show that was very close to being the first show having it, way before All in the Family. It was I Love Lucy. When I Love Lucy came out, all the members of the cast, which would be Fred and Ethel Mertz's character, and Lucy and Desi, all of them were up for their nominations of the Emmy Awards, but Desi Arnaz was the only person who never won during the course of the show. Now, later on, I remember correctly that the Emmy Awards did give one to Desi Arnaz. It was like an achievement award, but it was not in conjunction to his work on I Love Lucy, but it was more so for acting in general, because he was snubbed many years ago. So, because of which, their name is not on this list. But if you ask me, I believe if you watch the show and all the groundbreaking things that Lucy did back in the day, all those cast members deserve to be on that list. So it should be 4 television shows instead of 3. But I digress. Another fun fact is that Meg Malia's, which is Karen from the show, real-life husband, Nick Offerman, played Nick the Plumber in the Will and Grace episode back in 2001 called The Movable Feast, Part 1. She also played opposite his wife in Parks and Rec when she was Ron Swanson's wife, and I believe her name was Tammy, and she showed up a couple of times. Ex-wife, showed up a couple of times, and she was basically Ron Swanson's kryptonite. So that's another fun fact about the show. But enough about these fun facts. Let's get into the show. So everybody, help me welcome TSD. This is a recording that I did via Skype, and TSD is currently located out of Kingston, Jamaica. He is a family member of mine, but he's also a friend. Him and I have talked on many different levels about trying to get his TV show Pay Attention on the airwaves down there in Jamaica and getting more people to pay attention to the musical movement that he is helping helm in the island, and hoping that in doing that he can bring it here to America and across the world, which is why I wanted to interview him today. So I'd like for you to enjoy part one of my interview with TSD. All right, so I'm here talking with TSD, straight out of Jamaica. How are you doing today, sir?
Yo, I'm good, man. How you doing, Oh?
I'm doing pretty good. Just recovering from a little rainstorm we had here, but outside of that, all things great. Now, for those who are not aware, Mr. TSD actually started a television show down in Jamaica called Pay Attention, and it was pretty unique and one of a kind. So mind telling the viewers what it is you did?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not just me. It's me and the collective, because, you can't go anywhere without a strong team. You know what I mean? But basically what the genesis is that it's a live show, local hip-hop acts. So Jamaican hip-hop has an underground community, and basically we took it upon ourselves to promote ourselves and create spaces where we could basically showcase our talents as a genre, as a collective. So some of us came together, myself and a couple of my other partners from the studio, and we started putting on the live shows. That's where it started. Basically, how it turned into TV is we have a couple local, I guess you'd say, video music channels, similar to how you guys would have VH1 and MTV up there. And we have a cable station called Hype TV. And one of the reps from Hype TV came to one of our shows. I was really loving the vibe and saw the ingenuity, and basically partnered up with us so that we could put on different episodes, and each episode would be about how we put the shows together. So basically the artists would be getting exposure on TV and on stage. And the show was named Pay Attention, the actual stage show. So that name translated it to the TV show on Hype TV. And that's basically how it got started. So it's nothing. What I liked about it is that it wasn't really in studio. The show was on location every time, kind of like a documentary almost. Broken down into about 20-25 minutes, etc. With different episodes, we would promote the show, so people who watch the program on TV can also come to the show. It's like coming to a screening. So it was very interactive, and that's how we got it going, basically.
So, like, here in the States, they have different TV shows growing up, and I guess it's going to show my age of, well, I guess MTV doesn't do music anymore, but back in the day they had like Yo MTV Raps and things of that nature where people would come on to a show and do their craft. But what you were doing was actually going to different locations, so you could be like in Kingston one day, in the Grill another time, and another time you could be in Montego Bay. And then in doing that, it gave the people of Jamaica the ability to not only watch the show, but be like, hey, we're going to be in your town next time, so come on out and see whatever local talent that you guys had on stage that time, which I think is actually pretty cool. Now, how difficult was it to actually find the venues? Because, like you said, you didn't have a studio, so every time it was like finding a venue. Every single time you had to do a stage show.
Well, just for clarification, because while that was the vision in terms of going on that ultimate tour, Mobay, Negril, etc., all of the stuff took place in Kingston. We did not get to, unfortunately, expand our reach outside of Kingston. And as far as the venues, Pay Attention has been kept at various locations in Kingston. However, during our filmed run, we kept it basically to one venue. I think there was another venue at the end of the run where we may have switched up to another venue in Kingston. But mostly we were working with one venue, South Beach. Not to be confused with Miami, but South Beach Cafe, which is a very popular establishment here in Kingston. and that's where we were mostly based for the longevity of the run.
Okay.
While we were filming. So that I just wanna get that out there, because I do wanna also state though that ultimately making that jump to the grill and all of that, those were on our agenda, and perhaps when we expand into other seasons, we'll be able to cross that path. But that's definitely what we want to do. But most of it was in town.
I gotcha. So how was the vetting process for talent? Because I mean, anybody with a microphone can say I have talent, so you would have to actually like listen to these guys and think this is what we're trying to put on stage. So what was the process as far as trying to find talent?
Absolutely. Now the thing is, because we're a part of the Jamaican hip hop community already, prior to putting on any shows, we already fostered a network. Just by being practitioners of the genre and practitioners of the culture, we eventually know, most of the local rappers in Kingston. And I mean, we had our own vetting process. People would submit via email, etc. And it was a process that allowed us to expand the map, because even though we didn't get to go outside of Kingston, we did have a lot of outside of Kingston representatives. We had rappers from Portmore, which is a little bit outside. Think about like the difference between Jersey and New York. So Portmore and Kingston, Portmore is a little bit out. And then we had rappers from Mandeville come into Kingston. That's kind of a little bit further out, so go past, Jersey in the tri-state area, and people would come in. So even though we couldn't go to them, we'd have them come to us. And I mean, as rappers, as practitioners, we have a fairly good idea once people are submitting tracks, submitting music, whether or not it's up to the level. But now once we see you in person, that becomes a deciding factor. All right, we would go through the basic industry standards. We'd have to make sure at least 3 or 4 rehearsals before the actual event. So it's not just a situation where we're promoting, we're organizing rehearsals. We're going through everything to make sure that the product that we put on, even if you're not at a certain level, through X amount of rehearsals, you've sort of put together enough of a stage presence where we're not just hanging you out to dry. You kind of you've got your reps in, so to speak. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So it's like it's like you do a very good job. You can present yourself very well for the music, but you might not have that live presence. But because you get to hone your craft with all the rehearsals, then it's one of those things that when those cameras are on and they're recording, it's like crisp and not the person like fumbling over lines or missing their mark. Because I know that's one of the issues with music is even if you have it on recording or if you have a live band, you have to hit those marks perfectly. If not, you're going to be off beat. And especially with rap, you have to catch up with that beat. And then that's when it sounds kind of disjointed. So I can see the benefit of that. I think also to the people who are listening, because the point of the ExtraVerts podcast is to inspire people to do similar things to what you're doing, is that what you're doing is not only having a TV show, but giving local talent a platform to be like, hey, look, this is you on TV, or for people who have, let's say, a YouTube show, this is you online. And I think that's part of the problem, is that there's a lot of people out there who want to get discovered, but it's when those cameras come on, that's when the rubber meets the road kind of situation. So it's good that you guys went through to make sure to not only vet these people, but also make sure that they got the rehearsals in so that they could be as crisp as possible.
Absolutely. And our thing was, as rappers, we're cultivating somewhat of a new movement and a new appreciation. So we understood early on that with the odds against us, we would have to exhibit ourselves in a highly professional manner in order to meet the grade. I mean, of course, you have dancehall, you have reggae, and everybody's going to be receptive to that. But we have to also have ourselves on an equal playing field, and we'd be very easy to dismiss or throw to the side if we weren't coming with something that was correct. So we made sure that there was no half stepping and there was no opportunity for it to be said, man, we're disorganized, man, we're not living up to what it takes to be professionals. We always had a concept of being, you know what, we have to exceed the limit because it's easy to say, yo, this is amateur hour, and we weren't going to step out like that.
So it's funny that you mentioned that, because when a lot of people who do not live in the Caribbean, they only think of Jamaica as doing the reggae and dancehall, and it's almost as if you guys creating this Jamaican hip hop movement, rap movement, it's mostly like the rap movement of the 80s over here, where everybody was used to, I don't know if you saw the movie Straight Outta Compton, but everybody was used to listening to like R&B all day long, and then NWA tried to show people there's a different way of doing music. So like you guys have to make sure that when you come in front of people that you come with your best foot forward, because there's about 6 other dance halls and reggae people out there that could actually sit there and say, oh man, we've been doing this for years, we don't need another genre. But in making sure you come up correctly, it's one of those things where it's like, no, we can have a third genre that we're known for. And I mean, after this episode's over, I'll be playing a small snippet, but I can say that when I was there, because I was down a couple months ago and I listened to you guys live, it was amazing, because you get so used to what you hear here in America that when you hear another country take a genre such as rap and make it their own, it's almost like, wow, it's a whole nother animal here in Jamaica, but it's like their own. It's not like they sat there going, oh, hey, we're going to take rap and make it like something we're just going to copy. It's like, no, this is our movement here. So with that being said, in trying to cultivate a movement in a place which is known for just, you know, different types of music, how do you make sure you get that shelf space or get that attention that people need? Because I mean, obviously you're called Pay Attention, so people can pay attention to you guys, but what did you guys have to do to make sure that people actually did focus on that, because it's something so new that they've never seen before?
I'm glad you mentioned all of that. Basically, my whole thing was, and our whole thing as the council, because it wasn't just me, it was a whole lot of my affiliates at the studio as well, Gambling House Records, which is in New Kingston, which is one of the most urban parts of Kingston. We had to sit down amongst ourselves and say, you know what? Waiting on our time to shine on a reggae stage or on a dancehall stage where the audiences are really used to us and we're not necessarily what they came for, and to kind of jump all of those hurdles, it became taxing after a while. Of course, there were different venues and there have been different times where we've killed those stages, but it was always at the behest of a higher power. And we sat down and we were really looking at ourselves and say, you know what? If we want to push these opportunities, if we want to push this genre, if we want to make something that makes sense for us, we got to do it. I mean, I didn't come into the music business wanting to be a promoter. I didn't come into the music business wanting to put on events. But the stuff that we did with Pay Attention was born out of necessity. So that's why I believe it was so special, that it was for us, by us. Once we did it ourselves, everybody else started to get it. And when you come to the source and you know what you're getting, then you can appreciate us on our own merits and on our own terms. And I think that was very satisfying for us, not only as artists, but as stepping out as, I guess, you know, call it spade a spade, as entrepreneurs, as guys that are starting to put on different caps. Because, hey, you know, I want to rap. Do I necessarily want to be out there handing out my flyers, hitting the road, and, you know, trying to convince people to come to an event, you know, as it relates to that? No, I didn't come into the music business for that. But basically where we were, we realized, you know what, this is the next step, to be independent businessmen, to do it for ourselves and sink or swim. And we did not sink, you know what I mean? So that was very affirming, just on a level of, you know, having the gumption to take up yourself and go out there. We weren't going to sit down and complain.
So for all the people listening out there, I'm going to give it to you guys the easiest way possible, is that you have to imagine that TSD is sitting here at his home. He's writing down his lyrics and everything, and he's looking at an industry that's already told the entire country, the entire world, that this is all we produce for music and this is what we're going to produce forever, and then look at that industry and say, no, I can go ahead and go out and doing it. And that's part of the problem that I think a lot of us think, is that we have this idea, we have this thing inside of us to act, to create, to make a YouTube page, to make a television show. But then in the act of trying to create it, you then have to get people to actually want to see it because you like it, obviously, because it's your baby, your child that you're trying to nurture and show the world. But the whole world's like, this isn't anything special to me. And it's like one by one, you have to win people over. And it's so weird. It's like how you were able to make a TV show out of it, is that even if your show only lasted 3 episodes, it was 3 episodes longer than any other show out there. So anything you did was an accomplishment that went further than any other person that came before you. So it's like one of those things that it's so easy to look at it and go, well, you know, we're trying to make something new. Nobody's interested. I think I'm just going to go back and learn how to do reggae now because nobody's interested. No, you have to sometimes sit down and look at the industry that you're trying to walk into and go, I have to create my own path. And then once I do, others will follow. Because just like as you start to create your path, you found more people that are following with you. And it's like you get this momentum that you get to ride. And as you said, you know, there's the future plans of going to different venues or whatever. Those are the kind of things that I think people lose sight of, is that it's so easy to get beaten down on a day-to-day basis because you're trying to forge that path. But I mean, once you start making that momentum, it's almost like you're being lifted to that next plateau versus like struggling to get to that next plateau.
I agree with that full-heartedly, 100%. And it's like, for anybody, no matter what type of venture you are, and I think, you know, this will segue into the council great, is that it's something that I know that just me by myself couldn't have done it alone. I would say for anybody who's looking to venture and make that type of revolutionary step, get yourself with people who have the same mindset as you, the same vision, and all want the same thing. And the teamwork will make the dream work. I mean, it's all great and stuff for those who've been able to do it solo. But I find that the resources are easier. Every task gets easier where you can split it up amongst the crew. And I think that's what we started to learn. And that's where the council was really born out of. It was born out of like, yo, you know what? We're helping this movement move. And we've put our careers on hold, essentially, to say, you know what? We're going to be promoters of this thing because that's what's more important right now. I mean, and when we had to pay attention on pause, we said, you know what? We've done this. We've put on for the community. We're going to take a time out because we're getting so far away from what we are, what we wanted to do as artists. We had to say, you know what? We love this, but hold on. What did we come into this business for? We came into this business to make this music and to make this project. And the statement that the council is making as a musical entity is just a further I guess you'd say, it echoes the work we put in, the groundwork we put in as organizers of Pay Attention. So, right, I guess you would say Pay Attention was the root, and the council project is bearing the fruit of that work at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I mean, that's one of the things I think a lot of people have a hard time understanding is not, as the saying goes, is a dream deferred. Is like if you're moving towards a certain direction and then you see that things might not be working the way you want it to do, but in moving that direction, something else was able to spawn off of it and you can continue growing. That's not really a bad thing because you're still, like you said, you put your career on hold. You go, hey, we're going to try this Pay Attention thing, and out of it, the council was born, and you keep moving forward on it. So it's just great because if you're doing, let's put an example out there for YouTubers out there. If you have a YouTube page out there and you do movie reviews or music reviews and you keep reviewing it, you meet up other people who are like-minded. Next thing you know, you find you're doing a different type of page altogether. There's nothing wrong with moving on to something else because everybody has to have that thing that got their foot in the door, got everybody's attention to look at them, and then after that, it's like, hey, now you can watch me make other moves outside of this. If you like what I did before, you're definitely gonna like what I'm gonna do after. Now, to talk about your production and making music, like, do you get studio time? Do you guys just have like a mixing board and you do it in your own house? Like, what do you guys normally do to produce what you do?
Well, we operate out of a studio that we've been at for maybe the past 12 years. That's called Gambling House Recording Studio. That's in New Kingston, as I said. And we've been there, and it's a place where, regardless of whatever, because the hip-hop community in JA is so insular, you find that similar to what we were saying about performing. Maybe you're going to, all right, let's say you're just a rapper, doing your thing out here in Jamaica. 9 times out of 10, you might go to a studio with a big dancehall artist or a studio with a reggae artist, and maybe you'll realize as time goes by, you're not the priority, right? Yeah. And, people might say, okay, yeah, you're nice, but, X and Y, the engineer might not know exactly how to engineer your hip-hop vocals. They might not know exactly how to make your thing sound like how it needs to sound. Gambling House Recording Studios is one of the places where the rappers can come and know that they're getting that hip-hop mix, that direct hip-hop sound that they're looking for. So over the years, we've been known for that, separate and apart from the council. And it's a place where almost every rapper locally in Kingston, you've come through and you've voiced with us because of that, right? So we've always been a part of the fabric of the community. And that's where, as I said, that's where the council is born. That's where we even do our rehearsals, because we have a little stage set up there for people to rehearse. So even as we started to branch off and to pay attention, rehearsals were being at the studio, and this is how you get ingratiated community, et cetera, et cetera. So that's where we operate out of, and that's kind of like been a cultural hub for local hip hop. I would definitely say for the last 15 years.
Now, I will tell you, I guess the funny thing with people that I know, the history that I've had, is that you are right. There is something about sticking with the genre that you're working with, because if you're going to a studio or you're working with somebody that's outside of the genre that you're used to doing, they might not know how to market you properly. They might not know how to get your sound the way you wanted to do. I knew a guy many, many moons ago who tried to get into music, but he didn't know if he wanted to sing, if he wanted to rap, if he just wanted to play an instrument. So every track was completely different. And it was almost to the point that it turned people off, because you're telling somebody that you're an artist. That's fine. But there was nothing was the same. Nothing was similar. It wasn't congruent across the entire album. So if you get somebody who's, let's say, a dancehall person, and they go, yeah, I can maybe do a track or two the way you want it to be, but that ain't what I do for a living, you might get 1 or 2 good out of them, and then after that, it might just come apart. And then also, they're not ingrained in the community that you're trying to get it associated with. So now here it is, this one guy's like grinding away trying to make your music, but if you just would have went down the street to a person who actually does that kind of music, they can go, hey, you know what, you sound a lot like this guy, and you guys could work together and you could get collaborations going. And I think that's one of the things that you have to stay focused on with your craft, because you're your best marketing until you get a marketing team, basically. And until that point happens, you have to recognize, what is your sound, what is your voice that you're trying to say, what is trying to be heard by the masses around you. And then on top of all that, once the masses is paying attention, who else might sound similar, who could accompany you? Because you look at a lot of artists when they tour, they normally have like-minded artists that are the opening act, the middle act, and you got the closing act or whatever, and they normally are like-minded people. You don't have somebody who's sitting there and they go, hey, you know what, their closing act's going to be a hip-hop group, your opening act's going to be country western, and your middle act's going to be a polka band. It's not going to work that way. So with that being said, like, do you find yourself taking a mentor role sometimes with people?
I mean, sometimes, like, the thing about that, like, is that people just have to be open-minded to hearing that. Like, if there's a cat out there who's willing to hear what we gotta say, then yeah, I chop it up with them and I let them know, look, this is how I feel, this is what I think. But I find it's on a case to case basis, and I find that like not many young artists are always receptive because they're kind of like the main character narrative. So sometimes, you know, there used to be a point where some of these rappers really thought they were the only rappers in Jamaica. And then now they buck upon a whole entire community, and then it's like, you're not the protagonist anymore.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So there's that aspect. And of course, hip-hop is a contact sport. It's a competitive sport. So there's always that sort of natural competition. So sometimes people don't want to salute you as an OG. Sometimes they're gunning for you. So it is what it is, you know. But for those that actually have the open-mindedness to realize that there is some wisdom to impart, I impart that wisdom, you see me? And as does the rest of the council.
Yeah, when I used to take music lessons many years ago, music teacher said you cannot learn in a vacuum, that you could sit at home with your guitar, watch as many YouTube videos as you like, but until you get a teacher or a mentor that can teach you to take your craft to the next level, you're only as good as you think. Like you said, everybody's out there thinks, oh man, I'm the only rapper in Jamaica. That means I'm the best rapper. And then you go, no, there's like 80 other people doing this, and you're probably in the middle of the road. And then it's like, well, I don't want to do this. I'm in the middle. Well, somebody has to be it. You can't always, when people get in, like, I mean, it's not the best example in the world, but like when Kanye West got started, he was nowhere near the level of Nas is when Kanye West first got started. But now you can mention them both in the same sentence and people know what kind of music they do because he sat there and he says, I'm going to keep grinding away till my craft gets as recognized as some of the greats. And I think that's part of the problem, that people who are in that vacuum is that once they realize they're not the greatest, like perfect example, when you playing, was it Street Fighter at home with your friends and you're playing video games, whatever, your friends, and you think, oh, I could beat all three of my friends. I'm the greatest Street Fighter ever. And then some new kid comes on the block and just beats you all day long. He's like, wow, I'm not good anymore. I quit. You can't quit. Come on.
Yeah, no, that's 100% facts. 100% facts.
So let's try. You know,
but there's also the thing of, and this is what I watch for as well, is the thing of, well, what are you going to do with that? And to me, it's very telling what people do, because I know what I came into this music for. And I came into this music to work on my craft and excel. I don't think anybody wakes up on the first day and is the best at anything. But do you have the self-awareness? What did you do it for? Did you do it just for empty accolades, or did you do it for yourself to turn around and be like, you know what? If you wake up and you're like, shit, there are 80 other cats? Well then, I better start chopping my rhymes a little bit harder then. What do I do to step my game up? But you have to have the self-awareness to do that, and to want to do that, and to want to just be better for the sake of your own craft. Did you come into it to grow, or did you just come into it for, you know, some empty accolades because it's cool when you're on stage? You know what I'm saying? Like, is there really an artistic principle that drives you inside? And that separates the strong from the weak, ultimately.
So I had a friend of mine who, regrettably, he passed. He was one of the victims of the Pulse nightclub thing, but he used to be a pretty big singer in his local community of Orlando. And he used to tell me that. He's like, he would meet people for auditions that could sing really well and everything, but they didn't want to be a part of a group. They didn't want to grow. They liked the idea of being on stage and people seeing them, but they didn't want to put in the work to be that person that they get to see day in and day out. Because he's like, look, you can come up here and you can sing one time and you're done. And if you're happy, you're happy. But if you actually want to do this for a living, you have to sit here, hone your craft, get better at what you do, learn your songs, learn an instrument if possible, do what you have to do to get yourself better. Because he's like, he used to tell me, I can't stand when people would come up on stage, they'll sing one time, and then afterwards you go on back and say, hey, you going to come back and do some more work? It's like, nah, I'm good. Because what do you mean you're good? How are you going to get better? This isn't, if you want to do, he used to say, if you want to go and sing one time, do karaoke and leave me alone. Because that's basically what you're doing when you only want to come up there and you don't want to get better. I know plenty of people will go to a karaoke house, sing a couple times with their friends, and be happy. So just find yourself a couple friends, do some karaoke, and don't bother stepping on stage. You're not trying to get better. And I thought it was funny, but the more I saw what he was talking about, the more I was like, he's right. If you aren't going to put in the work, make it a hobby. Don't try to make it a full-time thing, because you're obviously not trying to put in the work for a full-time thing.
Exactly. And that work comes with sacrifice. And that's another thing. Like, if you're not willing to make the sacrifice, don't jump in the waters. That's just how I feel. You know what I mean? Like, and that's another thing. You can't, like your friend said, can't be too satisfied. You can't ever think that you've reached. Because I would say, I don't know if anybody ever does. Potential and the artistic heights you can reach, you can get better every day. I don't know anyone, no matter where they've reached, to say, yeah, that's it. That's as good as they get. No, you can get better the day after, the day after, the day after. You know what I mean? And I think that's what you should chase. I don't know if we ever catch it, but that's what you should chase.
So, like, throw a random fact out there. Lenny Kravitz, I don't know if he still does it, but back in the day, he used to say that he can't stand artists that come out and say, my album sucked because it had a bad drummer, or the bass player didn't know what he was doing. So what he did is he actually played every instrument on his albums. So if the album sucked, he said it sucked because I didn't do something right. And it was one of those things that he's like, you have to chase that impossible dream that, yes, you might be able to sing, but is there more things you can do better? And if you look over someone like him or someone like Prince or Michael Jackson, these guys, every album they had have their good and bad tracks. Everybody has good and bad tracks, but you can honestly listen to it and you can see the vast array of talent. They weren't trying to just recreate the same thing. Like Michael Jackson didn't try to create Thriller over and over again. He traded new songs each time. Prince didn't sit there going, Purple Rain was great, let me make another Purple Rain album. He's just like, no, that was good. I got to keep doing it, because if I don't keep doing it, people are going to tune me out. And Lenny Kravitz is still with us, but up to the point of death of both Prince and Michael Jackson, you can say whatever you want about them as a personality, but as an artist, these guys were like the staple that people were trying to achieve because they kept reinventing their style.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree with that 1,000.
So let's move into your material here. And I know you have an album that's coming out soon. Why don't you tell our listeners about the album and what it took to make it happen?
All right. Well, I mean, I'm part of the rap crew called The Council, which is myself, TSD, which stands for The Sickest Drama. So that's me. You have Five Steez, who's another great lyricist out here. You have Nomad Carlos, and you have Instincts. Instincts both raps and produces. And he did the majority of the beats on the album. So Instincts produces the entire project. And then we all as rappers rap on all of the beats with a few features from other local Jamaican MCs who are within the community that we were speaking about previously. Collectively, us four were known as The Council. So the group name is called The Council. And the title of the project, it's called Nothing Else Matters, right? And this project is coming out on September 29th, and it will be on Bandcamp. You can catch us on SoundCloud if you want to hear some of the previous singles that we've dropped. It's soundcloud.com/payattentionja. Still putting the brand name of the TV show and stage show that we used to host. But basically, the concept behind Nothing Else Matters, as I was explaining previously, we're all individuals who have been rhyming, I would say, over for 10 years now here in Jamaica, and in Instinct's case, even longer, and been a part of the community. And I mean, we all have our daily lives, and we all have our rap lives. And for us, this was an important stand for us to take musically as a collective, as a unit. And Nothing Else Matters just goes to show that, look, regardless of whatever else is happening, what really means something at the end of the day is the work that you put in and what you have to show for it. And this project, nothing else matters except the music that we offer to the people. And that's it. It's not a marketing strategy. It's not a gimmick. It's front to back, 16 tracks, just bangers straight through of our perspectives, our lives on each track. And I'm really proud of it. And I think people will be, it'll raise a couple eyebrows because I don't think they're used to this. And I'm happy to say that I do believe that this will be a pivotal piece of music, and history will bear that out as we move forward.
Now, Cassie, you did touch on something that you said, that this is what you do, and then you have like your day job kind of thing. And it's really funny, as men and growing in the day and age that we are with a bunch of superhero movies, that it's almost like by day you're just your regular person, and by night this is the rap entity, this is what you are. So it's like you have a secret identity kind of thing, where people on stage might not know you as a person, and the people who know you as a person might not know you as the person on stage.
It's 100% like that. It's 100% like that. There, you have Peter Parker and Spider-Man. Not everybody know that Spider-Man is Peter Parker, and not everybody know that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. It's 100% like that.
There you go. And then so that's like your transition. One day people will recognize your craft, and you get to be that Spider-Man 24 hours a day. Then you just get to go out in the store, and everybody's like, I don't know you anything else but this. And that's like I guess like a badge of honor that your craft has been accepted to such a point that people blur the line from who you are on a day-to-day basis and who the artist is, because they've just fallen in love with what you've been able to produce. And which is what anybody's dream is that they create something that the world around accepts. Now, before we close out our call here, is there any way people get in touch with you? Twitter, email?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, for me, I'm active on Twitter. Hit me up at The Sickest Drama, all one word, TheSickestDrama, at The Sickest Drama, all one word, no underscores, no nothing. I'm there. I'm on Twitter. And you can catch me on Facebook. I'm active online. But follow me on Twitter, and I'll reply right back at you. So I'm there. I'm active. You know what I mean? I'll probably go check to see what's on my profile after this call. You know what I'm saying? And you can check 5 Steez at 5 Steez, at Instincts, at Nomad Carlos. You know, we're all there. But once you follow me, you'll be able to get connected to everybody else, the entire council, and so on. You know what I mean? So you follow me, you'll be following Jamaican hip hop.
There you go, guys. And with the invention of the 2K Highway over in Jamaica, if you happen to be visiting and they're doing a set, I'm sure you can make your way across the island to check these guys out. They're great live. I can attest that by seeing them firsthand. I'd like to thank you, TSD, for showing up on today's episode of the ExtraVerts Podcast. Is there anything else you'd like to say? Parting words?
Nothing Else Matters, September 29th. Go on to the SoundCloud, soundcloud.com/payattentionJA, all one word. Get in tune with the council, and tell a friend to tell a friend, and tell them again. We out here.
Cool. Thank you very much, sir.
All right. Thanks a lot.
I already did my catchphrase, and we're about to wrap this little show up. But I want to just say thank you for tuning in once again, and to remind you guys to check out TSD and his album, which has already dropped. It's on. You can find him on SoundCloud. The link in the album is in the description for the council. It is an amazing album. I listen to it all the time when I work out. It's got some spoken word pieces in it. It's got some real good hip hop tracks in it, and a little bit of nostalgia sprinkled in there. So there's times where I'm listening to it, I'm like, man, this thing really like speaks to me. So make sure you guys check it out. Last thing I want to remind you guys is that this is a listener supported podcast, which means that if you guys don't support me, I go away. So if you want to keep hearing more of this podcast, If you know anyone that's a YouTube creator, you know anyone in the entertainment field, I'd like to know them. I have all my links in my social media accounts for Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at the bottom in the description of this actual podcast. Reach out to me. Let me know. Say, hey, let me introduce you to a buddy of mine or a lady I know. You know, maybe you can work something out together. Or if you happen to be one of those people, there's a link also in the bottom for a form. And that form will give you a straight direct shot to me saying, hey, Odian, I'm a creator. I'm somebody who's out there who's in the entertainment industry, and I want you to interview me. Last but not least, Patreon. Gotta say it. Put a little jingle in the cup, you know what I'm saying? I need to keep this podcast alive. And in order to keep this podcast alive, I need finances. And that finances is to pay for the streaming services, to pay for the advertising, to pay for the equipment and things when they go bad, so that I can still continue to offer you guys this quality, or if not better quality, of a podcast. So, in all things, guys, thank you for tuning in. And as I already gave my parting words, I'll say it again. If I don't talk to you soon, I guess I'll just talk to you later. Bye now.